Well, hello there, everyone. Thanks for joining me for our painting night live. I'm just checking to make sure. All right, welcome. So we're going to be doing some variations of the Wandering Ring Pour tonight. And I kind of had an idea. I think we're going to give it a try. I've never done this format of our painting night live before. But I'm going to be using one color palette for all three of our demos, and we'll see what kind of results we get with the same colors using three different variations of the same technique. So I've never tried that before. I always kind of mix up some different colors for the different techniques or different variations. But tonight we're going to stick with the same color palette and see what happens with all three paintings. All three of them should look relatively different. We'll see. One for sure I think will look different, but we'll see kind of some subtle changes with the technique. So we'll see what happens, and it's kind of a fun color palette we're going to be working with. Donna gave me the idea last night. We're going to be working with the red and gold and black color palette behind me on that top painting there. It's a very vibrant, it's very kind of dramatic color palette, so we're going to give it a try and see what happens. So welcome. Hey everyone, Monique is here. Hey Carla and Pat. Lynn is here as well. And all right, awesome. And Blue Dog Fine Art, I think that's Donna, perhaps. Welcome. I think it's one of the Donnas, so correct me if I'm wrong. So, all right, here. Just going to check and see if there are any questions before we jump in. And here's Donna Ritchie. Hey, Donna, welcome. So I'm glad you could make it for this one. It's going to be fun. And so what we're going to do, before I jump into the demos, I'm going to show you, we're going to do another quick demo. I'm going to show you how to make a simple split cup if you want to. Split cup is going to be one of the variations we're going to try tonight. So I'm going to just show you how to make a simple split cup if you want to. I like to make them if I have a strange size cup, or if I don't need, if my regular split cup that I like to work with, usually it's for 16 by 20s, but if you need to go bigger or smaller, you can make your own split cup. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. It's a very simple process, and you only need a couple things, and we'll dive into that right now before I get into the other demos. So I'm going to jump right over here, and we're going to take a look at what we need. So what I've got right here is this is just a 7-ounce cup, and this is the split cup I'm going to be using tonight for one of our variations, but I want to make it a split cup. And my normal split cups are larger than this one, so I want to make a smaller one. And in case you just can't find a split cup or you want to just make one, this is a great way to do it. And it's fairly simple. So you just need a cup, of course. You're going to need a ruler. You're going to need some scissors. You're going to need some Scotch tape. And you're going to need a Sharpie marker. I like to use these fine tip ones. They work really, really well. And finally, you're going to need some plastic. And I'm using just this thin plastic sheet. I've got a split cup piece right here. It might be hard to see, but if you pick up one of these Artist Loft Super Value canvas packs, either the 16 by 20 or the 18 by 24, they come with these awesome sheets of plastic in them. They come on the first, over the first canvas, and they put these cool sheets of plastic, thin plastic in there, so people can't punch in the canvases. There are a lot of jerks at Michael's, and they love to poke holes in the canvases, so they put these awesome plastic sheets in front. So if you just pick up one of these, 16 by 20 or larger, you can get one of these cool plastic sheets. Plus, you can get some canvases. So this is what we're going to be making our split cup section out of. And it's a pretty simple process. What I like to do is make these, it's a template here. So I've made this little template, and I've marked it 7-ounce split cup template. And then once you've made one of them, you can just keep one, trace it on your plastic here, and then cut it out and use this template over and over. So you don't have to go through this process every time. You just go through it one time and you're good to go. So I'll show you how to do it. You're going to have to use a ruler, and I'll show you how it's done. So first of all, we've got our little cup here, and I'm going to measure the height of our cup. So I'm going to stick my ruler inside, and I've already done this. This one is about, you can kind of see here, it's about 3 1/4 inches or so. It doesn't have to be perfect, about 3 1/4. So that's the height of our cup. And right here, I've drawn a line already. I've got a couple lines. I'm going to use this one. Basically, what I do is I line up, this is the edge of our plastic right here. I'll line up my ruler, and I just measured in 1.5 inches right here, 1.5 inches right here, and then draw a line. This is a center line for our little divider. So next up, we need to mark the height. So I'm going to just make, I've got a line right here that I've used before. So I'm going to just mark 3 1/4, just like this right there. Over here, I'll mark 3 1/4. I'll draw this out really quick. So we've got a line like that. So now we've got a middle line, a middle line. We've got a top line, a bottom line. So we know what the height of our cup is. Next step is to measure the diameter of the top of our cup. So to do that, I just kind of stick my ruler in there. And you don't have to be super precise. This looks like it's about 2 and maybe 5/8 or so. Pretty close to that. You might see that, 2 and 5/8. You don't want to get it too big, but you could always trim it, I guess. So I'm going to measure, I'm going to just mark 2 and 5/8 here. So I'm going to put my center line on the 1, and I got to go 1 inch, and then 1, 2, here's 1/8, 2/8, and maybe a 1/16. So here's 1, 1, 2, and there's 2 and 5/8 right there. So I'm going through this really quick. So, but that's the top of our cup. And then the next one is the bottom. And this one you kind of have to eyeball again. It doesn't have to be real perfect. This one looks like just under 1 1/4. So I'll make it just under 1 1/4, I think. Right down here. Again, put my mark on my center line. I could go like this too. So here's a 1/2 of 1 1/4 would be 1/8. Mark it kind of right here. There's 1/2 of 1 inch plus 1/8. Go in a little bit. So that's, whoops, I messed that up. It's a little too small. I'll move it over a little bit. So there we go. That's about 1 1/4. I'll just double check. No, that's not 1 1/4, 1 3/4. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm way off. So, okay, let me do that again. So here's, I'm talking too much. So here's 1 1/4 and another quarter. I'll just double check that. There we go. So that's more like it, 1 3/4. And then I'm going to just line up my little dots, draw my line like that. So this is all fairly straightforward and simple. And again, you only have to do this really once to make these templates, and you're good to go. Next up, we're going to just cut this out. Just like this. You can cut right on the line if you want to. There we go. So we've got our little template. We can stick it in there. It looks pretty good to me. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not like super airtight or watertight. It doesn't need to be, but we're in really good shape. So now, if this is the first one you've made, you can write on it. I like to write, again, a template. I'll keep this one. And then after that, if I want to make another one, I just stick it on my plastic, just trace the outline, cut it out, and you're ready to go. So now that we have this, we're going to put it in our cup. So that's where the tape comes in. So I just take some tape off, put some tape in some different areas. I kind of bend it backwards like this. We're just taping this in our cup. Maybe 4 pieces on each side. Something like that. I like to kind of fold the tape back so it's easier to install in our cup. Then one at the bottom here, and bend that back. So we got our tape, and the tape is what's going to stick to our cup. Now I'm going to just stick it in there, kind of eyeball it again, just make sure it's kind of centered inside our cup, something like that. You can take a pencil or a pen and just kind of burnish that bottom piece of tape down there like that. And then these other pieces, you just kind of stick them right on the inside. Just like that, and you're good to go. That's all there is to making your own split cup. This is just a simple, two-side split cup. We're good to go. Is it perfect? No. Is it going to work great? Yes, it'll be fine. We're going to get a little paint blending in between maybe the sides and maybe the bottom a little bit, but it's nothing to worry about. 99% of the paint will stay on each side. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a split cup for one of our techniques, and that's how you make a simple split cup. And let's get into doing our demo. So I'm going to move this aside here, get rid of all my other excess stuff, and I'll show you the colors we're going to be working with. Put this over here. And sorry for the... There we go. Okay, so I might have to zoom out a little bit, but I have got some paints here that I have mixed. I've got black, I have got Pyrrole red, a whole big cup of it. I have got some crimson right here. I gotta zoom out. I am super close up. And I have got a darker crimson. This is the same color, can't see it. This is crimson with some black in it. So it looks almost black, but it's a very dark, almost really warm purple color. So basically this color with a little black. I wanted a really dark shade of crimson. We've got some gold right here. And we have got some bronze. And I just mixed up a smaller amount of bronze. Got some bronze right there. And I'll show you the brands in a second. They're all pretty straightforward. But let me zoom out here. So we're going to be working on a 12 by 16 for our first one. And our second one, again with the same colors for all three paintings. I'm going to move these over here. So we've got our red is our Pyrrole red, which is a really bright, super red. It's like a Ferrari red. In fact, this is a Ferrari red. It's created after the Ferrari red, which is pretty cool. We've got, that's Liquitex, of course. We've got Master's Touch Crimson, which is a very pretty crimson color. I have got just regular gold, Artist Loft gold. I've got some Liquitex bronze. And then this is just regular Artist Loft Flow Acrylic Black up at the top there. So those are the colors. Very simple color palette, but they can create some very stunning, dramatic results. And that's what we're going to do. So the first one, let's see how my camera's looking. That looks pretty good. Something like that. So we're going to do a, we're going to copy exactly what my painting is behind me. I'll show you that back here in a second too. Let me just flip back real quick. So the first painting we're going to do, the variation, is a double cup wandering pour. And that's what I did with this one. And there's a couple different ways of doing the double cup wandering pour. It's a little tricky because you have two cups you have to move around at the same time over your canvas. But it's a fun technique to do, and you get some pretty cool results. The second variation we're going to do is a split cup. So again, very similar, but you can it'll give you some different results. And third, we're going to be doing kind of a large I don't really know how to name this one. I kind of call it like a loopy open cup. Well, not an open cup, but like a loopy wandering pour. So we're going to have like kind of large rings that we're going to lay down on a larger canvas. And that one is kind of designed to leave some negative space, kind of a lot of negative space. It's a pretty cool technique, so we'll get into that one too. So first, we're going to start with a double cup pour. So I've got 2 cups right here. These are marked at like 3 ounces each. I might use a little less than that. And of course, if you want a lot of negative space, you can use a little less than what's on the canvas coverage cheat sheet. And you could just divide it by half or something like that. That's kind of what I'm going to do for our third demo. But let me get into mixing or layering our cups, and then we'll get into it. So let me flip on back here. And if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. And let's see here. And I will try to answer them. Or you could just hold off till the end and I'll answer your comments then. So let's get into our first demo here. So I'm going to flip over, put my gloves on. Okay. So in our first cup, we're going to put our reds, and in our second cup, we're going to put our gold and our black a little bit. So, and then our black is going to be our base coat. So let's layer our reds first. I'm going to start with our Pyrrole red. Maybe 2 or 3 layers, we'll see. So you can see how much darker that crimson is when it goes over the top. And then here is our darkest crimson and a little bit of black. And this is the reddest red I've ever found, I think. It's just a really awesome color. And I'll end with maybe our red here. So that's our last layer. We're going to have a lot of red, which is good. We want a lot of red in this one. So I'll move these over here. And move this over, and let's do our golds. So a little gold, a little bronze. And these are just the easy formula. Nothing real fancy. 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint. You could also use the Liquitex formula if you wanted to. And a tiny bit of black. I don't want a lot of black in this cup. Just a little. And we'll go back to our gold. And the consistency is number 1. So it's the thickest consistency that I like to use. 1 or 2 is usually what I would recommend. And back to gold. A little bit more bronze. I think that's it. Again, I want more gold, I think, than the bronze or the black in this one. Just go back to gold. There we go. So that's it for our second cup. So I'm going to move that over. And put on some black for our base coat. And this is 12 by 16, so normally for 12 by 16 I'd use, you would use about 6 ounces of paint for a ring pour or straight pour. So I'm going to be using about that much, maybe a little less, because not all the paint will come out of the cups with the double cup pour or kiss pour, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so almost there. Got it? All right, so now we're going to just pour this on our canvas. And you can actually do this a couple different ways. I'm going to hold the gold in my left hand. I'm going to hold the red in my right hand. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start our pour right here. I'm going to pour out of the side we layered on both cups. And I'm just going to kind of slowly work my way across the canvas this way. So that's one way you could do it. You could also pour them together and work your way down the canvas coming towards you or away from you. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of move your cups across the canvas. So try one, see how you like it. You can always experiment with different ways. I'm going to flip the camera just so you can see a little bit clearer, perhaps, the puddle as it's coming out of the cups. There we go. So I'm going to start over here and just kind of work my way across to the left-hand side. So let's give it a shot and see what happens. Here we go. I'm just going to start those paints together. Kind of get it going. And kind of at the same time. Kind of slowly move the cups down. And you could kind of wander it up or down, depending on where you want to kind of move your paint. I'm just going to kind of pour it right off the edge here of the canvas. And you can't see anything. Oh my gosh, my hands are covering up the entire thing. Sorry about that. That was a bad decision. But there you go. That's kind of what it looks like. Let me go back to the top view. Sorry for my big hands being in the way. But this is very similar to a waterfall pour, actually. But we're kind of doing a waterfall pour flat. And we get these very cool, feathery looking wings that are happening. It's a really pretty technique. And so I have some paint left in my cup, but I'm not too worried about that. I used most of the red. There's a little bit of the gold left, but that's okay. And so now we can go ahead and tilt this out and see what happens. And just like a waterfall pour, kind of like to work my way down. And I'll turn it and kind of work my way up. Let's kind of bring it back. And I kind of like this interesting line right here. So you can leave some black if you wanted to. I might leave that for now. If you wanted to leave some negative space. I'm going to work my way down and pour off of this bottom first here. So go off of this corner. Maybe a touch more. There we go. And bring it back. And pour off of this bottom corner. Okay, so I think that might be it. So that might be all I do. The black is really what kind of accentuates the red. Without the black, this would look very cool, but the black, really takes it to another level because you can contrast this brilliant red with that dark black. So it's totally up to you, but I kind of like to leave some negative space in this one. I just want to get a little bit more movement, perhaps, in with our lines here. There we go. I kind of like that. So I kind of just tilted a bit to get a little more movement, a little bit more action happening within kind of those gold bands. And so afterwards, I'm not going to take the time now, but you can go back with your black and touch up all of the edges and just leave that black negative space. I think that looks pretty cool. Yeah, and then, yeah, Kathy just mentioned, is it our view or do you touch up the black at the top? Yes, I'll go back afterwards and touch up all this black. I don't want to take the time now. It's a pretty simple process. You just take your fingers and you can just rub the black or let it kind of drip over the edges. But you can do that afterwards. But that is our first one. And again, you can get some very interesting results. And I love the way that the two cups kind of merge together in this particular technique. And you kind of lose, half of one, but that's kind of the nature of the technique. Unless you wanted to keep negative space on both sides, that could be kind of interesting too. You could play around with that. But I kind of like this setup. So, all right, so there we go. I'm going to move this one and we'll jump into our second demo. I'll be right back. I'm just going to mute this really fast. Be right back. Okay, so here we are. Now let's jump into our second demo. This is going to be very similar, but we're going to use our split cup that we just created right here. And I'm going to layer the sides very similar. The reds on one side, the golds and the black on the other side. Maybe a little more black in this one. And then our black base coat, and we're going to pour it on very similar to the first one and see the differences. So same color scheme, pretty much same everything, but we're just going to see the difference between the split cup and the double cup. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to pour down one of these sides. Go with my red. Here we go. I'm just doing the same thing. Back to red again. Now, oops, shoot, I messed up. So, shoot, I messed up. what I'm going to do is pour this out. Ugh, I really messed up. Because what I should have done, what you have to do with these cups, these split cups, I forgot to mention, is fill both sides kind of at the same time. One and then the other one. Otherwise, they can leak underneath. So, shoot. Oh well. But that's okay. I'll show you again. So I'll start with the gold this time. I got too anxious. So what we're going to do, I'll start with some gold over here and then put some red over here. And if you kind of do it at the same time, it will stay separated. It should anyway, hopefully. I'm almost at the top there. A little bit more gold. There we go. A little bit more bronze. A little bit more red, and I think we've got it. Cool. All right, there we go. So now we've got our cup. I'm going to put this aside. Let's put on a base coat. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and pour this out. Again, I'm going to start over here, or I'm going to start back here on the left-hand side and kind of work backwards, pouring our split cup. You could work forwards as well. Maybe we'll try that at the very end. We'll see. So let's get going. I'm going to just leave the camera on the top view this time. So here we go. I'm going to start kind of right at the edge. You can kind of wander it up, wander down a little bit. But with the split cup, you're going to get the more of the red side on the upper or the lower side, gold on the upper side of the canvas. So there we go. That's our kind of big band. And you could decide if you wanted to, one thing you could do is go back over, which gives you kind of an interesting look. I'm going to actually turn it. Let's try something. Because right now if we tilt this, it'll be very similar. We'll have kind of gold up top, red on the bottom. I'm turning the cup. So we have the gold on the bottom and red at the top now. I'm going to go back over our band of paint. This is kind of like a double. And now we're working kind of backwards. So you could try that as well, kind of going a backwards and then kind of a forwards motion at the end. So there we go. Let's give this one a tilt and see what happens. Very similar. I'm just going to kind of work my band of paint down. Something like that. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave a lot of negative space in this one. We'll see what happens. There we go. I'm going to tilt off of this corner first, I think. Kind of like the way this one's headed. Just moving this paint down to the lower corner here. I think I might tilt that gold right off that corner. There we go. Just kind of moving the paint back, give you kind of a shot of it. I like what's happening. So there we go. Again, you could keep the black negative space. I kind of like that. The black doesn't really distract you too much. I mean, those white edges do, but those would go away when you fill them in. But I kind of like this interesting line, kind of like this melted line down there, kind of into that black. So I think I'm going to leave that negative space. And then the black kind of will disappear as you look at this. And you'll kind of, the black will recede in the background, and then the red and the gold will, kind of pop to the foreground. I quite like that effect. So you could leave more black, you could use less black, you could tilt off the entire canvas. I think I'm going to leave that right there. I kind of like what's happening. So there we go, is a second one. Now it's very similar, of course, to our first one, but we do have quite a bit of variation. Just a different type of technique. So you can kind of see what the differences are, between the double cup and then the split cup. So I'm pretty happy with that one. I really like, I think it would look very cool if we didn't go back over it that second time. I kind of like what happened going back, kind of doing the double wandering pour. So let me move this one, and we'll get into our third and final demo, the loopy wandering pour. I'll call it the loopy one. So I'll be right back. All right, I am back, and I've got my larger canvas. This is a 16 by 20, and we're going to do the kind of loopy pour on this one. So I'll kind of explain what that means in a second here. But I'm just going to use a single cup, and this is going to have a black base coat, just like our previous two. But I want the negative space to play a role in this painting. So I'm going to just use about 4.5 ounces of paint in this one. I'm going to just use our reds and our golds. I'm going to mix them all in the same cup. And then we're going to pour it on our canvas in kind of a large, kind of loopy motion. So we're going to have a lot of negative space kind of popping through. Then we're going to do our tilting. So only 1 cup for this one. So just normally for 16 by 20, I'd use about 10 ounces of paint for a regular ring pour or a straight pour. So I'm kind of going right in half, dividing that in 2, just to account for our negative space that we want to remain. So I'm going to just go ahead and layer this one. Same colors. I do want a lot of red in this one, so I'll start with the red. Go to our crimson. Kind of our dark, and then I'll jump over to our gold. Maybe a little bit of the bronze. So this will probably be about two layers, maybe 2.5. I'm going to leave the bronze, well, one more tiny bit of bronze perhaps. A little more. And I'll go back to a little bit of gold. I'm almost there at the top, and then I'm going to go back to red and finish it off with the red. A little bit more. There we go. Cool. So we've got our cup filled. Maybe just a pinch of gold at the top. Why not? So I'll move that aside. And then let's put our base coat on. Again, these are all easy formula and number 1 consistency. So these are thicker paints, the thickest I use. So I'm putting this on, I'm spreading this maybe a touch thicker than I normally would, just because we're going to be tilting off probably most of these edges and leaving our negative space. So just a touch thicker base coat. There we go. Looking good. Maybe just a little bit more up here. That's looking nice. All right. Maybe I'll pop some air bubbles on this one with the torch. And you don't need to get it perfectly flat or anything like that. I try to do my best with the palette knife, but just get as close as you can. There we go. That's good enough. I've got my torch. Just do a little bit of torch and pop some of the air bubbles. Since it's a little thicker base coat, we have a few more air bubbles, so nice to pop them. There we go. All right, we are ready. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to probably be pouring out of the same side I layered like I have for all three of these. And we're going to start kind of high, and I want a very thin stream, and we're going to I'm going to be pouring this in kind of these large circles, kind of moving around the canvas, leaving plenty of black space kind of popping through. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start maybe off the side of the canvas here, just get it going, kind of a thin stream. There we go. Oops, we got a little... This can take a little practice to get kind of a consistent stream. Those are not super consistent. But this is, yeah, that's kind of what I want. Just kind of a... And at the end here, we'll get some thinner streams. And that is our loopy wandering pour. So I had some kind of blobs happening. I used just a regular cup. You could use a measuring cup with a spout. Would make it a little bit easier. I just kind of wanted to go with a regular old cup. Also, you don't have to clean it then. So that's what we have for now. And this is kind of it's a fun technique. It looks really messy right now, but still cool. But once we start tilting, things are going to change a bit. So I kind of like this one a lot. So let's go ahead and just do our tilting. Just kind of move the paint around. I like to kind of change the angles a lot when I'm tilting this technique. And we might not go off of all of the edges. So, because I kind of like what's happening on a lot of these edges. So more so than thinking of the standard way we tilt, I'm just kind of looking at the composition and changing it just to kind of suit my taste, which means I might not go off of every corner. I'm going to go off of this corner here. There we go. So this is a much more abstract, obviously, technique. So that's what we've got so far. I'm liking what's happening. Just taking a look at it. Again, we want negative space, so I definitely want to leave some black. And let's see. Just keep moving it around a little. I actually kind of like it the way it is. Now, obviously, if you use different color palettes, you're going to get different results, and, reds and blacks can be, very, kind of harsh and dramatic. This particular technique might be a little much with the black and the red. There we go. I'm just pouring off of this corner, this side right here. I'm going to bring that back. Oops. So I'm just making a few little minor tweaks here. And there we go. I kind of like it just like that. So I wanted to pour off a couple corners. I poured off this side. I wanted the paint to extend off of at least one or two sides. And then I have it extended off this side and this corner here. I kind of like these three corners all by themselves. So I'm not going to tilt off anymore. But I kind of like that one. It's pretty dramatic. Looks very organic, if you know what I mean. But very cool. It's a very fun, cool technique. Things can happen, you know, very quickly with this one. And but I like working with other colors in this kind of crazy wild technique. So there we go. And I think I'm going to call that one good. Again, I would go out back afterwards, hit all of the white edges with the black. You can clean everything up. You can do that now, or you can wait till it's dry, and then go back with a brush and paint them black. Since it's just a regular black paint, the choice is yours. And but that is it. Now you could also, I'm not going to jump into that now, but you could also modify this if you wanted to. This is a great technique to modify it with some maybe finger drags and combs and things like that. But I would do that before I started tilting. That way you would kind of incorporate those modifications a little neater into the composition. It'll look kind of flow and become a little more organic as you tilt that. So I've already tilted it, so I'm not going to do that now. But that's also an option. And you don't have to do that. You could just do the kind of loopy pour, and just like I showed you in this demo. So there we go. And let's see. I think we've got three pretty cool demos. So let me flip back here and see if you have any questions about any of the demos we talked about or I demonstrated. And let's see here. I'm just going to check and see if there's any questions I might have missed while they were coming in. Lynn is asking, where did all the gold go? We do have some gold patches in here. Gold is a mysterious color. Sometimes it pops up, sometimes it likes to stay hidden. I'd say we have a pretty good amount of gold in this last one. The crimson really kind of took over in this one, which is surprising. But we do have a lot of the pyrrole red peeking through there as well. So you never quite know. If you really want the gold to show up, you can use the DecoArt 24K gold. That will definitely show up. You actually have to be really careful with that one. So, all right, let's see here. And asking about last week's swipe after it dried, it looks terrible. So I don't like it at all. I didn't scrape it. I was going to scrape it, but I didn't scrape it. What I'm going to do is use it as a test piece because I had a lot of coconut oil in that one. So what I'm going to do is just varnish it and see what happens. I'm not going to clean it. I'm not going to do any kind of canvas prep. I'm just going to varnish it and see what the coconut oil does, if anything. I'm not going to resin it, but just varnish it with the Liquitex varnish. My guess is nothing's going to happen. It's going to varnish just great. But I'll let you know what happens. So, all right. And let's see here. And Don is asking, what is the consistency? This is the number 1 consistency, the thickest one, like mound on a mound. You could do number 1 or number 2. The small mound, mound on a mound, is what I used for this one. So more on the thicker side, for me anyway. Let's see here. And Kathy is asking kind of an unrelated question, as she mentioned, but she says, I just took off my tape from the back of my canvas, waited until after resined, and it didn't come off smooth. Is there a certain point to remove the tape? You want to remove the tape after the resin is hard enough, not when it's wet, but before it really cures. And that can be tricky to know when, but you want it to be dry. The longer you let the resin sit, the harder it's going to get. Another thing you can always do is take a heat gun, your blow dryer, or I'd recommend like a heat gun or a little heat wand like they have. You can heat up the tape with the resin on it, and if you heat that resin up, you don't want to get it super hot, but as you heat it, it'll peel off much easier. So because you're kind of reactivating the resin a little bit with the heat. So heat it up, it should peel off a whole lot easier. So, good question though. Let's see here. Let's see, just looking for questions. Hopefully I answered that one, Donna. The consistency. Let's see here. And yeah, Kathy is saying at least the pros make mishaps. Yeah, we all do. No matter how good you are, you're always going to screw something up. So that is true. So I screw up plenty of stuff. Let's see here. And Monique is saying hit the spank the like button. That's a new one. I like it. Thanks, Monique. And Donna needs to get some Pyro Red. Yes, get some Pyro Red. And Carla is asking, which technique was the hardest? I'd say the hardest one, they're hard for different reasons. You need coordination for the first one, the double cup pour. The coordination is the toughest one with that one. But it just takes some practice. Like if you practice a little bit, you'll get the hang of it. The last one here, the loopy wandering pour, for me is a little bit kind of the toughest one, just because I kind of want just the right amount of circles happening. I don't want the blobs happening, so there can be a lot of things that can go wrong with that one. And it's not like it's wrong. It's just like, oof, I wish I could have done that better. But to me, that one's the hardest one, just because there's no room for error, really. You just got to start and go for it, and do the best you can. But I'd say the split cup is probably the easiest one to do. I would start with that one. And if you have a split cup, that's great. You could just use your pre-made split cup or make one yourself. Just remember to fill it up kind of equally at the same time, unlike what I did. So again, another screw up. So hopefully that helps. They're all pretty simple though. I mean, these are a whole lot easier than a pearl pour. They're a whole lot easier than, actually like a Dutch pour where you have to manipulate another tool. And so these are relatively simple. They just take a little bit of practice. So just pick the one you like the best and go for it and see what happens. And all right. Well, I don't see any other questions at the moment. Last call if you have any questions. Otherwise, we did 3 pretty cool pours. Again, I used the same colors for all 3. That's the first time we've really tried that, so you could see the variation with the same color palette. And I actually recommend giving all 3 of these techniques a try. Just mix up a little bit larger batch of paint and do all of them. Do all 3 and see which one you like the best. You'll learn a whole lot. So, all right. Cool. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me and watching. Give these a try. Again, the paints are pretty simple. I went over them all at the very beginning. If you want to rewatch that, you can get all the colors. Pretty simple color palette, but you can get some pretty dramatic results. So thanks so much, everyone. I look forward to seeing you on Friday. We'll do another demo. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.